For weeks, anti-regime protests have taken over the streets of Iran, with activists saying nearly 2,500 people have been killed as the government cracks down on dissent. The world is watching closely, and China's foreign ministry has responded, saying it hopes the Iranian government and people can overcome the current difficulties, while clearly stating its opposition to any foreign intervention in the region. Well, Bang Xiao, reporter for ABC Chinese, joins me in the studio for more on this. Now, Bang, how is Beijing reacting to the unrest in Iran, and what kind of outcome do you think would best suit China's interests?
Yes, Yvonne, I think China isn't looking at the problem in Iran at the moment through an ideological lens, but more of a risk management problem. From Beijing's perspective, the key concern right now isn't who wins politically, but also about whether instability spills over. For example, the energy markets, shipping routes, or even a wider regional conflict. How would that impact Beijing's economic and political interests? So the outcome China prefers is a controlled situation where there's no collapse of the regime, there's no disruption in the trade routes, and there is no regional conflicts that escalates. But I think what's interesting to me is that China concerns more about its own future and interest more than Iran's future.
Well, you say the China-Iran relationship is more transactional rather than ideological. Tell us a bit more about their relationship currently in terms of trade, energy, as you've mentioned, and also the BRICS alliance, and why this is important now.
Yes. The relationship between China and Iran has been very pragmatic. China and Iran work together mainly because of the economic interests, rather than not anything else. China is Iran's biggest trading partner, and China buys almost or more than 80% of Iran's oil exports, often at a discount because of the sanctions as well. So it doesn't translate into political loyalty or any security commitment that China would defend Iran if the situation escalates. Beijing keeps its distance in a very smart way. It doesn't guarantee Iran security, and it doesn't really tie its own reputation with the situation inside Iran. So this isn't an alliance in the traditional sense, but it's a cooperation without obligation, I think.
And you're of the view too that China isn't likely to support intervention from the US in Iran. How closely is Beijing watching this? And also, what do you think worries China the most about this?
Yeah, I think Beijing is surely watching it very closely. If the US intervenes militarily, that creates an immediate disruption onto China's economic interests. As we just discussed, the energy supply, the shipping routes, and even China's reputation. For example, the international community would expect Beijing to make its position clear about whether it supports Iran or not. And that's something Beijing really wants to avoid. At the same time, Beijing knows the US involvement also brings it a bit of opportunity as well, given a potential conflict between the US and Iran may distract the United States from the broader Asia-Pacific region.
And how's this all being presented domestically? What are Chinese netizens saying about this unrest that's taking place in Iran?
The situation in Iran is still visible in China through the state media coverage, and netizens are still having quite heated discussion about this. People have very diverse perspectives on this, but what's important for us to understand this situation is that any coverage about a potential protest or conflicts in other countries are always framed through the official or semi-official narratives. For things like this, the Chinese state media would potentially never cover the situation in the phrase that they pointed out as a grassroots protest what they really want to point out is that a potential US intervention may further disrupt the international order, and China is the key factor that's calling out for peace.
Bang, really appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.